Our first story is about a sport that's grown in popularity in recent years and is played on ice. No, we're not talking about hockey. We're talking about the sport of curling. As Laura Faber tells us, you don't have to wait for another Olympics to see it, learn it, and even play it right here, right now.
It's a sport that involves ice, granite stones, special shoes,
sweep,
a broom for sweeping,
all the way, guys, all the way, bring it in,
and a lot of yelling.
That'll work. Great sweep, guys, good shot.
It's called curling, and here in Nashville, there is a club dedicated to the sport. Carl Biltz is known as the Ice Guy and a member of Nashville's Curling Club.
We reestablished the curling club in October of last year. They had about 20 members when I first got here, and we have already almost doubled or tripled the membership to 54 people already.
Curling is on the rise locally, thanks in part to this place called T-Line Nashville. It's the only place in the state built specifically for the sport.
What we have here is dedicated ice, so we don't have ice skating. It's a whole different level. And we say good curling, you give a handshake. And it's funny, the winners buy the beer at the end of a game, and the winners sweep the ice. So it's completely opposite to the way in the NFL we learned. But it's great camaraderie, and again, the people are so welcoming, and that's why I think the sport's catching on so well.
Mark Bolger is the co-owner of T-Line. He's also a former NFL quarterback and curling enthusiast. T-Line also offers bowling, food, and drink. But the 3 sheets of perfect ice is what draws the crowd. You can take lessons here, and this is also the curling club's home.
A lot of people think it's like shuffleboard, but it's more like closest to the pin or bocce. But the tough part is you're on ice. So just staying upright again and closest to the pin. In golf, I'm a big golfer, so the strategy is a big part. It's co-ed. The age doesn't matter. I've got my butt kicked by 60, 70, 80-year-old guys. But a female can come in at 15 years old and kick my butt too. So I think it's 98% of the population can curl, and I think that's what makes it unique.
There is much to learn. 4 players to a team with each throwing twice. The granite stones, also called rocks, weigh about 44 pounds. The ice sheet is 45 yards long. The goal is to get the stone to the house and as close to the bullseye or the button as possible inside your opponent's stone. The last push is called the hammer.
Oh my God.
The only uniform really for a curler is probably the shoes?
Pretty much. The
shoes
are the key, because one shoe has a textured bottom, so you have better grip on it. And then you have another shoe that has a slider attached to it, so you can slide down the ice when you're delivering the stone.
And then there is the game itself. Harder than it looks, good balance required, and so much strategy.
I equate the strategy a lot to almost a chess game on ice, because you're trying to work with what your team can do, with what you know of the other team's faults and their strengths.
The goal, to have as many rocks as close to the center of the rings as possible.
The way it scores, with being closest to the pin and everything, it's more like a bocce ball, because you spin it and it will rotate and curl into the area where you want it to go.
The curling is actually part of what you're doing to the stone, right? Or it's a movement of the stone?
It's the spinning of the stone. When you spin the stone, you'll control which way it's going to curl. If you spin it clockwise, it's going to curl to the right. If you spin it counterclockwise, it's going to curl to the left.
Come on.
The sweeping is to make the rock go further down the ice, or you can make it hold the line a little bit, or maybe curl an extra 4 to 6 inches depending on which side of the stone you're sweeping. The sweeping is the hardest part, and most of us at our level or at club level, you have about a 7-second lifespan on it when you're sweeping a stone, because it's the second most aerobic activity that you can do short of cross-country skiing.
This Olympic sport started in Scotland in the early 16th century, but today players compete on ice that is perfect. T-Line's official ice guys scrape the ice sheet with 5-foot-long razor blades. Then they create pebbles using water at 120 degrees so ice freezes nice and tall. Finally, a nipper is used to even out the pebbles, cutting them all off at the same height.
When you're looking at a hockey arena's ice sheet, you can have a degree or two of play and you'll never notice it on skates with a puck. Now, with a curling rock, if there's half a degree of play in it, it's always going to go that direction. So we do our best to keep the ice as flat as possible. We keep the pebble as evenly spread across the sheet as we can. And the reason we do that is so the rocks slide consistently and curl consistently throughout the game.
Anyone can play, young and old, men and women. Elizabeth Rose is hooked.
I love the camaraderie. The community's great, and I hope that's part of what you all may have heard tonight is just lots of encouragement and moving people forward.
Elizabeth is talking about the spirit of the sport.
It's one of the few sports where we start off every game with a handshake and say, good curling to every person on the sheet, and we finish the game the same way, because there's a lot of sportsmanship out here. We want to see these people having a good time. We want to keep them coming out. And like I said, the camaraderie on the ice is one of the things that sells people on it.